Hello, everyone. Welcome to More to the Picture Than Meets the Eye Behind the Lens with Steve Babineau, legendary sports photographer. My name's John Horrigan. It's a pleasure to be with Babs here tonight. Nearly 50 years of capturing some of the most iconic images ever taken of Boston sports photography. Boston Red Sox, Celtics, Bruins, rock concerts, college hockey, NHL, WHA, and more. Babs, how are you tonight?
I'm doing okay, Johnny. How are you?
Good, thanks. Hey, Babs, when we were in the last show, we talked about your injuries that you were as a photographer, but we're going to talk about some of your cards here. We talked about Bobby Orr playing with the Blackhawks and Gretzky and the Oilers and Gordie Howe and the WHA with the Houston Aeros and later the Whalers. And we talked about the great Mario Lemieux. Now let's start bottom row left corner. It's 1971. Bruins are going to go back to back. They're going to win 3 cups in a row. They've got this kid, where was he from? Cornell and net, this big gangly kid, and he stones him. He goes on to backbone the Habs to a cup in 73, 76, 77, 78, and 79. I think I got them all. Mr. Ken Dryden, talk about that Hockey Digest cover that you took.
Yeah, this is, I think it's dated 76, I think.
Yep, June 76.
I originally started shooting for Sports Collectors Digest with baseball. And then, John Kunster was the editor of not only the Baseball Digest, but Hockey Digest. And it's kind of sentimental to me because I remember my Uncle Lenny always would get the Baseball Digest. And I'd always would see it at the house and check it out, read up on Mickey Mantle and Ted Williams and all those guys.
Great magazine, too.
And all of a sudden, they decide that they're going to get into the hockey market, and they put out a Hockey Digest. And, here I am. I'm in the garden, and I'm shooting, and I'd already been supplying Mr. Kunster with pictures for Baseball Digest, and, I said, I can supply hockey. And, I was a big Ken Dryden fan. I thought he was a great goaltender, and this is basically, this particular cover was him. Do you want to put a goaltender on the cover with his mask on where you really don't identify with him, or do you want to do something like this? And I think that's why this particular picture was picked. This is warm up, he walked out on the ice and he's skating over by the boards. And, I just happened to get this picture of him. And I remember running into him later when he was affiliated with the Maple Leafs. And I was in Montreal. And he remembered, I remember him seeing this cover, and then I'd seen him before that, and he thought it was he really liked it. And then I ran into him again when he was he the GM, I think, in Toronto there for a while. And, and he looked at me and he goes, "You're still shooting." I go, I'm still shooting. And so, little connection there. And so I ended up, supplying Hockey Digest with, I'm trying to right now figure out and go back and see how many I actually had. But I know maybe in like the first 20 issues of Hockey Digest, I might have had, 9 covers. I didn't have the first cover. I think it was Bobby Orr. It was out of New York, I think. But, I think I had like maybe 9 out of maybe the first 20 covers of different players. So I just happened to find these lying around at the studio. But that's Montreal beating us in 76 at the Garden when they beat us for the Stanley Cup. So that would have been the same year.
77 season, you mean, because Montreal beat them in 77 and 78. So is that Serge Savard holding the cup there with Larry Robinson?
Yeah, Serge Savard is with the cup right there. Behind him, you have Larry Robinson and Wilson, I believe. Was it Ben Wilson?
Nope, Bert Wilson.
Bert Wilson behind him, but that's them skating around the ice at the Garden with the cup, and that's Ray, obviously, in 1980, number 7, no captain on the sweater.
Wow, no A,
no captain, and Stan Jonathan's to the right there in the background.
Yeah,
but I mean, he was like. The big guy for us, carrying the puck, moving the puck, young star.
Yeah.
And
Rookie of the Year, Calder Trophy.
Yep. I got him on the cover. I remember I had Steve Shutt on the cover. I had Bobby Hull with the WHA was on a cover. I think Wayne Dillon of the Toronto Toros was on a cover. I think I had at least 3 or 4 Montreal players on the covers of that, as well as Terry O'Reilly. I think we had Peter McNabb. I mean, there's a bunch. I'm trying to find those. I mean, I actually, believe it or not, somebody had eBay. They had 6 Hockey Digest covers, and they were selling them as a lot. And when I looked at what they were selling, 4 of the covers were mine.
Wow.
so I bought it. I won, and so I got a couple out of that I know that I didn't have, or I couldn't find. I can't find.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
but
and look at Ray there.
Opened up the magazine market with Hockey Digest. The Hockey News put out 2 magazines. One called Hockey World, Hockey Pictorial. Then you had Beckett had a hockey magazine. So the market opened up not only with the card companies, as Topps was the only one. Then the next thing you have Upper Deck, you have Pro Set, you have Donruss, you have Score. And the poster companies, Norman James, Photo File down in New York, 8x10 companies, picture pucks, putting pictures on pucks. So the licensing market exploded, or just grew in this window when, I'm in the Garden now shooting for the Bees, and had installed strobes up in the ceiling, flashes in the ceiling, which improved the quality of the pictures. And, that was an investment, and not everybody could make that investment. And there was only a handful of us doing that at the time. And
say that again, Babs. Can you repeat that? So you guys had lights or strobe lights? Could you repeat that again?
I mean, there was a couple of pioneers back in the day, and one of the guys that I idolized growing up as a kid, his name was Harold Barkley out of Toronto. And he was probably the first person to ever shoot with a flash hooked up to a camera, an old Hasselblad camera, maybe in the late 50s, and shooting out of Toronto. And he would literally focus on the goal, because it was a Hasselblad camera and you had to look down at it, look down for your focus, and focus on the goal. And he would get all these unbelievable 2 1/4, 4x5 inch negative color pictures of the crease, behind the net, slot area. And, I'm sure he was pre-focused, waiting for the action, and then bang. But the quality of the pictures was just unbelievable. And I remember buying a Hockey Illustrated magazine back in the day that I might have mentioned in an earlier show, of Moose Vasco and Glenn Hall, and it was in color. Nothing spectacular about it action-wise, but the color of the magazine cover just jumped out at you. And it just got embedded in my mind. Here I was, like 11, I think, or 12 years old, getting this magazine. And it just made such an impression with me. How did he do that? And you could literally see the flare of the light, the bulb, the light on the glass on the far side. And if people had glasses on that was sitting in the stands, you could see it reflecting. And, he was doing. Then there was a gentleman in Lou Portnoy out of St. Louis had put strobes in there. And, so I looked at that and said, okay, what does this mean? It's going to improve the quality, the color, the grain is going to go away from pushing film. You're going to use a different type of film. But the problem was you could only take a picture every 2.5 seconds, because the power packs in the ceiling had to recharge. So it became a countdown. Click, 1, 2, 3. Click, 1, 2, 3. Click, and as well as you were focusing in the manual focus things. So, I asked about installing them in the Garden, and I was given the okay. Paul Mooney, president of the Garden, told me that I could do it. And so I asked Dad for a loan. I asked my dad for a loan, and I think back, he made it available, and I was able to do this and put them in. And the next thing you know, here I was now already shooting for the Hockey Card Topps, the hockey card company, but shooting available light. And they were getting most of their photography out of Washington by a photographer there that was shooting with strobes. So if you look back at some of those card sets in those days, you would always see a Washington Capitol in the back, or you would see the same dashboard coming behind the net, or you'd see Washington fans wearing jerseys. So here I was making this investment and already shooting for Topps, and I told them I put strobes in, and they just jumped on me on that, because they loved that idea that now they had another building where they were going to get strobe photography. And I immediately got a contract from them for a quantity of pictures guaranteed, you know, at a set price. So, you know, worrying about paying for your film and paying for your processing and knowing where you're going to sell your stuff, all of a sudden I had this one outlet that was willing to commit to a certain quantity of pictures, which obviously helped me big time. But the same thing, the strobe photography opened up with the poster companies, the calendar companies, the 8x10 companies as well. I started to get phone calls.
What year are you talking about? What years?
You know, I put the strobes in 79, 80 in the garden. So, you know, that would have been that 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84 window when you can go back and probably see when the hockey cards exploded. I remember ProSet getting a card, you know, the NFL called me up and asked me, we understand you have strobes in the Boston Garden. I said, yeah. And I said, well, we just got a hockey license. Would you be interested in supplying us some pictures? We'd like to send you a list. And, you know, I said, yeah. I said, you know, send me the list. And
the NFL, Babs, the NFL?
That was the NFL. NFL had ProSet football cards out, okay, under, you know, it wasn't the NFL. It was a company called NFL ProSet, I believe. And they were putting out football cards. But then they went and got an NHL license under the name of ProSet. And, you know, so I get this list. And I really didn't take it too seriously. And I had submitted a bunch of pictures for a Topps sticker album, okay? That Topps got into putting out hockey stickers. And Topps decided that year that they were not going to do a sticker album set because Panini had gotten a sticker license. And I just think they didn't think there was a market for two sticker companies. So they returned this box to me, you know, that had all the top 8 players per team in this box. And I remember after I had this conversation with the guy at ProSet, I went home that night and the box was on the front step. And I literally just readdressed the box. I didn't even really look at their list. I readdressed the box and I sent it off to ProSet. And, you know, I was working my regular job at that time, working for a company in Waltham and doing the Bruins and doing the photography. And I get a phone call maybe about 2 or 3 weeks later. And this guy from ProSet says, wow, I'll tell you, man, your stuff was like really, really good. Really, really unbelievable. I go, really, really? How good was it? Then he told me how much it was. And I go, what are you paying?
Right.
And then he told me what they were paying. And at that time, you know, Topps had the market cornered and they had set the price. And this was like 3 times more than what. And I just said, whoa, you know, and we chat for a little bit. And I said, well, send me the next list. And it was their base brand product and their platinum product that they had out. And then later they ended up adding a Parkhurst product. So, you know, about a week later, I called the guy back and I said, you know, I told him the story about the box and not really spending any time looking at their list. And he kind of said to me that, you know, you had probably 65% of the photos used in the 2 products.
Wow.
I said, well, you know, if I spent any time and probably looked at the list a little bit more seriously, I probably would have picked up another 15 or 20. And all I know is they came back to me and they said, we would like to have somebody like coordinate this for us. Would you be interested in being our first outlet to go to photography for? And, you know, and I told them that I was, you know, working with other team photographers around the league, you know, in Long Island and up in Ottawa and out in LA where, you know, they were helping me supply my clients. And I said, you know, yeah, I said, this would be a great opportunity. So, you know, I became like their coordinator. They gave me a list. And the next thing you know, I was on a plane flying to Dallas, going to Dallas, sitting in my boss's office. And we literally would pick the card set front and back right there in like about an hour and a half. So I'm getting on the plane flying back to Boston. And I know exactly whose pictures are going to be used before they even went to press. And,
cool.
You know, it was a great window, short window. It was a great window. You know, but then ProSet, you know, they started to get into other products. I remember them doing a Disney card set. They did a pro golf set. I think they did a MTV set. You know, I just think that they got a little too far-fetched on just focusing on 1 or 2 product lines and making it grow. they just try to do too much at once, I think. And then they got into trouble. And they eventually, I think, folded after, it might have been three years of putting out product. But, you know, I had established working with these other photographers, you know, a good relationship because I put some money in their pockets. So, you know, I was supplying everybody, you know, with hockey cards, you know. So I've got, you know, Score, Donruss, Upper Deck. You know, Upper Deck, I helped them with their first card set, you know, and I'm still doing some work for Upper Deck now too. Even they're the only card company right now, and they've got me shooting games during the season for them, and I travel. So you know,
the whole market.
It's how do I want to say it? It's different from shooting the game now under the new rules that we have to shoot the game for the National Hockey League, and it's more like an editorial concept, horizontal to fit your computer screen, versus the way that I was brought up to shoot the game of hockey, which was isolated vertical. Isolated vertical because I wanted the magazine cover, I wanted the 8x10, I wanted the hockey card, I wanted the poster. So, you know, I wanted that rookie card. I wanted that guy that just got traded. So, you know, probably 75% of my archive or 80% of my is vertical. It's vertical isolated. And I think the NHL later on saw that, and that's why I've got this relationship with the archive with the NHL.
Wow. It is amazing though, where you were taught to shoot vertical, the whole industry changes to digital, and it's a horizontal world for the photographer. And moreover, there's one card company and there's no more print media.
Right. It's gone, you know, it's gone from one card company, Tops, to one card company now with Upper Deck. But in the middle, there was an explosion. And, you know, same thing happened in baseball. You know, I mean, I worked for Fleer shooting baseball cards for Fleer because I was shooting hockey cards, you know, so, you know, here I am going to work for Fleer in '79 shooting baseball, and then they end up getting a hockey license, you know. So it was unbelievable. It was just if the word is oversaturation, I think that's the case. You know, you just had too many to choose from. So what did you, as a collector, what did you focus on? You know what I mean? And what did you collect?
And I remember Fleer had better gum than Tops, but I used to love that piece of gum when you got some cards. And I don't know if you remember as a kid, those big, huge cardboard ones. I think they did it 1 year, you know, I rember having
that was their, you know, Tops sued Fleer back in the day with the baseball card because they felt that they had the rights to do that because Tops, I think under Cy Berger, was compensating the baseball players by picking something out of a catalog, you know, a fishing rod or a luggage thing or whatever. And then when Fleer, I mean, if you remember, if you go back to '79, I think it was, they put out not '79, '59, you know, changing the subject to baseball, but they put out a Ted Williams set, you know, of Ted Williams' career. And then they did a star set of stars. Then Tops took them to court, and Fleer couldn't do any more baseball cards until from that window of '59 to '78, what happens? You have the explosion of licensing business. You have players associations getting formed. Okay, so you want more revenue. You know, the owners want more revenue, the players want more revenue. So it makes sense to add more card companies. So now, here we are in '78, '79, and Fleer now has Major League Baseball and the players on their side. So it goes back to court. And it is deemed a monopoly, from what I gather, what I can remember reading. And Fleer puts out cards as long as they don't put bubble gum in the package.
Oh.
So Tops had the exclusive to put the bubble gum in the package. And Fleer, I think the first year, Fleer attempted, if I'm trying to remember, Fleer attempted by putting a cracker in the package. And from handling, and people dropped, the cracker broke. And then I think Fleer just realized, if you remember, then they started putting stickers in, like the logo.
Okay, I remember the stickers, yeah.
Okay, and then they ended up doing stickers of the players. Then I think they just finally said, hey, let's just put an extra, maybe 1 or 2 cards in the pack and a sticker. So there was I think a few more cards in the pack or whatever, but it was Fleer putting out baseball cards.
So it was only Tops that had bubble gum. So I must have been comparing Tops gum from year to year. It changed one year is what I remember.
Well, I'm sure Flair put out the bubble gum in that Ted Williams set as well as that Star set that they did. And I'm sure they did in those days. But you're talking about Ted Williams set in 1959. I was 7 years old when I remember getting that set, collecting that set with Uncle Lenny buying me packs of cards, you know what I mean? And then in the 61 set, I think it was, you know, you had Mickey Mantle, you had Hank Aaron, Louis Aparicio, Warren
Roger
Spahn.
Maris.
You know, so I grew up, you know, with those names or those players, and Maris, Mantle, Yogi Berra, you know, so yeah, I mean, I was a card collector back in the day, and then all of a sudden I found myself working in the card industry, and then just being around it, I kind of like, I stopped collecting the cards, but what I did was in '79, when I went to work for Fleer, I remember going to a baseball card show, and a couple of years after that, going to a baseball card show, and I went up to a guy's table, you know, not to ramble here, but a guy had a 1960 Carl Yastrzemski card on his table, and Brian was with me, and, you know, Brian's maybe 10 years old. I go, hey, you know, I got that card. My mom threw away all my cards, but, you know, I got that 1960 Carl Yastrzemski card and a rubber band with some Red Sox players. Well, I go, well, how much is that? And the guy goes, well, you know, you can have that. That's like $25. Rookie card. Here we are, 1980, right? So it's 20 years old. And right next to it was this card about this big, Christy Mathewson.
Ooh.
Hall of Famer.
Big six.
T206. And I said, what is that? I didn't know what it was, but he goes, oh, that's a T206 1910 Sweet Caparel card. I go, wow, that card is 70 years old. And he goes, yeah. I go, how much is that card? And he goes, I'll let you have that for $10. And I go, that card's 70 years old. Hall of Famer. He's passed away. Great picture. $10, 70 years old, and Yaz's card is $25, and it's only 20 years old? And he looked at me and he goes, well, you're working for the companies that are making the cards now. And the kids are buying the cards today of the players that you're shooting, but the parents are going back to when they collected cards, and they're only getting back to like the 50s because of the age.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't documented. These 1910 cards are not documented. You know, Beckett was just starting to come out with a magazine covering the new stuff, but it hadn't been figured out how many cards are in that T206 set, whatever. But it just did not make sense to me that here's a 70-year-old card of a baseball Hall of Famer, okay, that I knew who he was, that his card was worth more than Carl Yastrzemski. So I asked the guy if he had any Ty Cobbs. And he said, yes. And he reaches up and he pulls down this binder and he opens it up. And there were 4 Ty Cobbs in the book.
Oh.
Cy Young was in the book. Walter Johnson was in the book. Same set. And I bought them all.
Wow. Do you still have them?
I paid $160 for these cards that I bought from this guy. Common players, 50 cents. Hall of Famers, anywhere from 10 to 14. And what I did is when I left that show, I focused on 1909 through 1914 baseball cards.
Ooh.
Going to shows, just looking, creating my own checklist from what I had and what I saw, maybe in I think it was Sports Collectors Digest was a paper in those days, seeing who else was selling era. And I literally focused on that era of baseball because it was Tinker Evers, the Chance with the Cubs, and it was Cy Young, Tris Speaker.
Merkel's boner.
You know, it was just, and all it said on the card was Cobb, Detroit. And on the back was an advertisement for the cigarette company. You see what I mean? But, you know, I proved in my mind, there was a set called the T3 Turkey Reds. And it was a mail-in order. On the back of one of the cards, they were a 5x7 card. And on the back of one of the cards was a checklist of like 120 something players that were available, as well as boxers. There was a list of boxers. And you wrote in for the player that you wanted. And I think it was a nickel. I can't remember. It might have been a nickel or something like that. You wrote in the checklist, you put it in, and you got the card. So put yourself back in 1910. and you're watching baseball and you're seeing Cobb and Mathewson and Young and Speaker, and that's all you're really hearing about.
You're only watching live baseball, no radio.
Yeah, your radio. But this checklist had those players on it as well as what I classified as common players. Okay? So here I was now trying to complete that T3 Turkey Red set. And when I needed my Ty Cobb card, I had my choice of 5 Ty Cobb cards from 5 different people, collectors. And they wanted anywhere from $150 to $300 for that Cobb card. Now, after the collecting started, okay, and it started to, you know, draw attention. But if you're back in 1910, you're writing in for Ty Cobb, more so than a common player. And I proved, I believe, without reason of a doubt, that the really valuable cards are the common players. Because the last 6 cards I needed to complete that T3 Turkey Red set were all common ball players.
Three Finger Brown, Chief Bender.
Which I could buy in those days for like $20 to $30 for a common player. But here was Cobb now at $500. And I believe that's the way it is in collecting. You gotta look at it and say, okay, the obvious is there, but why does the obvious cost more when there's more produced?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And, you know, I've kind of like used that if I'm collecting things, like when we get down the road, we're talking about Westerns. You know, why is a John Wayne movie poster worth more than a Walter Brennan?
Right.
When Walter Brennan, you know, yeah, okay, John Wayne movie played in lots of theaters back in the day. But how many movie theaters did that Walter Brennan appear? But John Wayne's movie poster will cost you more money today.
Hey, Babs, we're running short on time. We're going to go back to our next episode. We will talk about the cups portion, but it was fascinating learning about the card industry, how it's changed, the vertical to horizontal, and installing your own strobe lights. Just a fascinating discussion. So, just in closing, in terms of your cards, as a long time, I'm an old time baseball fan. Would you be able to show us maybe some of those cards one day, or do you still have them in your possession?
Yeah, I mean, no, I ended up selling the archive. I sold the archive back in the day in a Leland's auction, and you know, at that time we were looking to buy a motorhome and basically, but I do have some of those cards still around, styles of those cards, so I can definitely dig some of those out and show those.
Yeah, maybe when we do our baseball segment.
Hockey cards as well.
Well, we're at the end of this particular episode. More to the picture than meets the eye, with legendary photographer Steve Babineau. Babs, thanks again, buddy, and we'll come back and start it up with Stanley Cups. Thanks a lot, Babs.
Okay, bud.
Yep.